So by the time we finish this presentation, I'm actually looking at my watch now, and I'm going to time myself. By the time we finish this presentation or this discussion, you should be able to answer the following two questions. And this is really for the students, all right? The first question is, did I manage to stay awake the entire session? Okay. I being you in this case. Did you manage to stay awake the entire time, right? 20 minutes, did you stay awake? And then the second one is, did the information that Rashad, and I like speaking of myself in the third person, share with me, help get me any closer to achieving my dream or my vision, right, of effectuating change on a global level, right? So those are the two questions I want you to answer. Hopefully they will both be positive or affirmative. If not, sorry, particularly for the first one. But having said that, I'm Rashad Nelms. I work for the United Nations World Food Program, which is based in Rome, Italy. And so I've worked with the organization for 16 years as of next month in a variety of capacities and locations. I've worked in South Sudan, Pakistan, Zambia, Australia, Sierra Leone during the Ebola crisis. Most recently, Cox's Bazar, where I was there for 3 months helping on the Rohingya refugee project there. And so what I wanted to share with you today is A, how did I get into this position, right? And then B, what are some of the lessons I've learned that might be helpful to you as you pursue an international career or as you develop and implement projects with a global or international scope, right? So let's start with how I got here. So I am from the States. If it's not evident from the accent, I'm just telling you now. And so I was born in Indiana, but then moved around a lot. So Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and I like to claim North Carolina, but really my home is Indiana. And so I graduated from high school in Michigan, and I decided to pursue my political science degree at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Managed to get my degree, and then decided it would be great to pursue a degree in law. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I wanted to change the world. And the best way of doing that, I thought, would be to pursue a career in law. Let's just cut to the chase. I hated law school. I hated law school. Not every single day. There were some days that were better than others, but I really enjoyed making friends, playing basketball, in that order. But I managed to graduate. And a lot of the skills that I learned in law school, I continue to use to this day. So after I graduated law school, I decided I didn't want to pursue a career in law. But I knew I wanted to use this degree to effectuate as much good globally as possible. And so through a series of networks, I managed to identify an opportunity with the World Food Program. And so I joined in 2004, and I worked in policy. And in that capacity, I helped to develop our first strategic plan, which was really revolutionary or innovative because we began to move from providing in-kind food assistance, which essentially are commodities that are coming from the UK or from the United States, Japan, Canada, Russia, to more of a cash-based transfer, right? So using cash that's provided by the donors to purchase commodities, either from small-scale farmers or from larger consortiums in the countries where we work. So you're injecting cash into the local community or to a national community while also helping to strengthen food security. So from policy, I became a government donor relations officer. So what that means is that I worked with two governments primarily, the Netherlands and the United States, which are two of WFP's biggest donors, to ask and receive money from them. And this is important because we are $7 billion organization. We're the world's largest humanitarian organization. So every dollar or all the money that we receive is critical, particularly from those two donors. I did that for a little while. Then I went to New York where I worked with the Central Emergency Response Fund. And so it's called SURF. And what SURF does is it provides funding or grants, if you will, to other UN agencies who are on the ground and developing and implementing activities during emergencies, either sudden onset emergencies or slow, like a drought or yeah, primarily drought, right? Slow onset emergency. And in that role, I was helping to do a lot of the advocacy as well as the reports for how agencies were using the funding that SURF was providing. From there, I came back to WFP, and I worked in the executive director's office as a special assistant. And I'm not sure how many of you have seen The Devil Wears Prada, but there are some parallels there, right? In that I was, you do everything, right? Everything from doing reconnaissance about where she's going to stay to making sure all the briefing documents are correct, anticipating any kind of questions she might ask with regards to operations, policy, or programs, being able to pick up the phone and know who to speak with in the different parts of the world to answer her questions, in addition to traveling with her at all times, in addition to helping to develop and implement advocacy and fundraising programs in collaboration with the directors of the private sector, as well as the communications teams in WFP. So I was doing all of that, in addition to serving as the director of our corporate ambassadors program. And so the corporate ambassador program uses or leverages celebrities and influencers to support our fundraising and advocacy. So we have a roster of probably 25 people now, including Christina Aguilera, Drew Barrymore, what else do we have? Michael Kors, Paul Tagat, Sami Youssef. I feel like I'm missing Jose Mourinho, Kaká, to support us. And so I was doing that, managing a set of focal points all across the world to make sure that we're strategically using them to the maximum abilities. From there, I went to HR. And in HR, I helped to develop our first onboarding program for senior field leaders in nearly a decade. From there, I became an information management officer. And so I was really trying to take some of the best practices and information that the organization had collected or collated over the years and putting into a central place, in addition to managing different reporting exercises to, again, report back to donors how we're using their money throughout the world. And then I went to Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. And so in that role, I managed a small team of about 10 people who were responsible for advocacy, fundraising, and communications and reports. And so that was very cool. It was in the middle of nowhere. It's quite isolating, but it was a very unique and very interesting experience. So what does that have to do with you, right? What it has to do with you is this. There are 7 lessons that I've learned that I think could be helpful to you as you, again, pursue whether it's a career with WFP or other UN agencies, or even as you do social entrepreneurship on a global level. Right? So these are the 7 lessons. First one, be agile and be willing to adapt to your circumstances. One of the things that you probably picked up is that I've had a lot of different jobs, right? And very few of them are connected to each other. But it was the ability to adapt and to be fluid that allowed me to be successful in each of those roles. What you're going to have to do is the same, right? You're going to have to roll with the punches. And so that's point number 1. Be agile and be willing to adapt to your circumstances. Number 2, move, and this is related to this, move beyond your comfort zone, right? I took those jobs in part because I wanted to, but in part because also I had to, right? And the reason why I say had is that the jobs weren't necessarily in my comfort zone. There weren't things that I necessarily knew how to do, right? Or knew how to do well. And so again, it required me that growth that I've had since then was because I moved outside of my comfort zone. So that's point number 2, move beyond your comfort zone. Point number 3, be inquisitive, right? And so after I served as the special assistant to the executive director, I took some time off. And during that time away, I did a lot of non-UN bureaucratic things, right? So I took singing lessons. I got my motorcycle license. I traveled to Colombia. I learned from an older tailor, Italian tailor, how to sew men's clothes, right? I also took a menswear design class. Why is this important? It's that curiosity, that intellectual curiosity that is critical for helping you to think outside the box in order to identify different ways of applying your knowledge, right? What you're going to find is that the work that we do, particularly in the international arena, is not linear, right? So the more information that you have at your disposal, it will allow you to think outside the box. It will allow you to be creative. It will allow you to think in ways that your peers, many of your peers, have not or cannot. So again, be inquisitive, be intellectually curious. The fourth thing is stay in the moment, stay present, right? And this is one that I struggle with on a regular basis, but you've got to do it, right? It's easy to get caught up in what may happen. It's easy to get caught up in our imagination. The thing is that what's right in front of you, what's happening now is the most important thing, right? So don't lose sight of that. Stay in the moment. The fifth thing, network, network, and network. I can't emphasize or highlight that enough, right? What you're going to find, again, particularly in the international development and humanitarian world, but even beyond that, in the social entrepreneurship area, it's about who you know. It's not about what you know, right? So I was able to get this job, my first job in the United Nations, not because I was smarter than anybody, but because I had a more extensive network that I was able to leverage. And so it was incumbent upon you to develop those relationships, to develop those friendships, not purely because you want to, get a job. I mean, do it for the sake of getting to know people, but also recognize that there's value, there's an intrinsic value in developing that network, because you never know how a person might be able to assist you, right? So network, network, and network. And then the last thing is, I'm laughing, I'm kind of chuckling to myself because I struggle with it. Ask for help, right? We, particularly in the entrepreneurship world, the business world, there's this myth or this aura that Bill Gates did everything himself, right? Or who else? Trying to think of other people who have been perceived as doing it themselves. But the point is that we have this hero complex. In reality, it's not. I'm living proof of that. It's not. I got here. Yes, I worked hard, but I'm a product of the people who supported and encouraged me. People like my parents, people like Jimmy Ross, people like Eddie Nelms, Carrie Nelms. These are people that you will never meet, but they were behind me, right? And what was critical is that I could go to them when I needed help. I would ask them questions. How should I think about this? Or am I missing something? Can you help me to develop this even further? Is there someone that you know who could help me? But don't try to do it yourself. I've made that mistake. And so one of the things that my former executive director of the World Food Program told me, and I'll never forget this, and I hope that you find it helpful, is there's a difference between being a soldier and being a general. A soldier takes orders. A general is delivering them, right? And so soldiers tend to try to do it themselves, whereas generals recognize that they can't. So they're going to have to ask for help. They're going to have to, again, solicit inputs to help them identify obstacles, identify ways to mitigate or overcome those obstacles. But again, it's incumbent upon asking for help. So that's my time. Again, the questions I posed to you at the very beginning: did you manage to stay awake? Hopefully you have. If not, humor me and say yes. And then 2, has what have the information that I shared, has it been helpful in helping you to pursue your ambition? Right. That's it. Thank you for your time.